Yay.
We did it. We're live. Welcome to the show, everyone. Welcome to the Get Good podcast with Carol Freeman, the podcast for comedians that are serious about getting good. So whether you're trying to advance beyond just speaking into a microphone like I'm trying to figure out right now. So whether you're trying to advance beyond the open mic scene or looking to get booked consistently at clubs and beyond, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, comedian Carol Freeman, and on this show, I interview headlining comedians, club owners, bookers, festival judges, comedy instructors, and more to find out their best tips, techniques, and strategies so that you can improve your stand-up comedy and get good. And my guest today, I'm so excited, the CEO of the World Series of Comedy, Joe Lowers, everyone. Welcome to the show. Here we got this.
Hi, everyone.
Yay.
Yay.
Oh, you're just coming off the road. In between the breaks of well, let me read a little bit more of your bio here. Let's make it official. Let's not assume everybody knows who you are. Joe's the owner of the World Series of Comedy, and when he's not producing one of the largest comedy festivals in the US, he's on stage doing the Joe Show because he knows what a great feeling it is. He loves helping other comics get stage time and watching them making audiences laugh as well. And let's see, Joe's been doing comedy 28, 29 years, almost 30 years, headlining in Las Vegas for 10 years and touring around. Let's see, I'm doing the highlights here, so I don't read it all. So anyways, not only a festival owner, but a comedian as well, too. So, and I'm going to say he's one of the best ones at helping comics really get good. So that's one of the reasons I'm really excited to have him on here. So welcome, Joe.
Thank you. I love comedy. I love helping comics.
Well, doing all that you do, it'd be miserable if you hated it. So
Yeah, I know. I'd be like, it'd be a dumb choice to do all this.
yeah, what if you hated it and you're actually secretly just trying to kill comedy altogether with what you're doing?
There's some people that think that about me.
It is weird. It is weird that like people have all these kind of preconceived notions about different festivals and things like that about like I like this one, I hate this one, and really it's kind of like people saying bad things about anything. Is it typically the ones that are saying negative things have never had an experience of it. They haven't participated in it. They haven't been in it. They haven't met you and the other judges. And
yep, that's correct. And every once in a while we get a comic who's did it, but they don't buy into what we're trying to do or whatever. I mean, festivals and contests are not for everybody. I say it all the time. Contests suck.
yeah.
It's not really the contest why I do this. It's the networking and getting to know each other. And if you don't buy into that, if you're just registering for this festival or probably any festival to win, you're probably doing it for the wrong reason. I mean, I get it. We all want to win. We all want to be the winner, but there's only one winner. But if you do it right and get everything you possibly can from the festival creators or the club owners and stuff like that, you can definitely benefit.
Yes, for sure. That's what I learned. Kevin is one of your hosts, and he's one of my friends from Seattle scene. We started together, and he encouraged me to apply for a while, and I was like, I just don't feel like I'm good enough to enter a festival or competition, anything. And then he talked me into it, basically just all the benefits that you get out of it, the feedback, the networking, just all the stage time opportunity. And I already just going through the Phoenix satellite, I'm like, oh, it's so worth it just for what I've got already. And I'm super excited for the main event that's coming up.
Yeah,
so
the main event is like every time somebody talks about how much they love a satellite, we're like, man, your head's going to explode when you get to the main event. So it's the stuff we do at a satellite, the main event, it's 10 times, maybe 20 times more.
Wow.
This industry walking around, hundreds of comics. It's really fun.
I can't wait. Well, let's just kind of go back to the beginning. You've been doing for comedy for so long. I'm pretty sure you've seen all the different chapters of stand-up comedy and how things have changed over the years. So do you remember your first open mic?
Yeah, I sure do. I broke this whole festival is designed around all the rules that I broke. Yeah, I was bad. I mean, I did really good actually on stage the first time, I think. I mean, I've watched the video since then. It's pretty bad, but I got laughs, and I did. But I mean, I came out dancing to a song, and it was like I think I got 5 minutes on stage, and the song was a minute and a half or 2 minutes before I even talked. And then I did my stuff, and I went long and ignored the light and
Oh no,
got
because you're
myself.
good. You needed more time.
Yeah, I was killing, and I really wasn't. And yeah, it took me. Yeah, it's crazy.
Was it in Pittsburgh or where?
It was at the Pittsburgh Funny Bone. It's when they had the club at Station Square. If anybody's watching and remembers that, it was Pittsburgh Funny Bone was the original Funny Bone of all the chains. And then after 1 year, the other half of the chain left because Jeff, the owner, is crazy. We became good friends throughout the years, but he's nuts and probably hard to work with. Well, not probably. He's hard to work with. Mostly him, brother. But yeah, I went down and did it. And I first went down and watched an open mic. It's something that I've been wanting to do for years. Then I went and watched it. And then I remember sitting there in the audience, as many other people do, going, shit, I could get up and make faces and be funnier than some of these guys. Understanding all that it takes. And then I talked to a comic after the show, and we all went out, and I made him laugh, and we became friends later on, PJ Williams, and he's like, you should try it. And I'm like, all right, I think I will. But that's it. Nobody really gave me any advice on how to write and how to do that. And everything, all the mistakes that were made, and I think the mistakes are good. Sometimes you have to make mistakes to learn and grow. But sometimes you don't have to make all the mistakes. You can, that's why this festival's here. I mean, you could come to this festival and figure out some of the things you're doing wrong or don't know that you haven't been told yet. I went up and like I said, I was dancing, and it was hot like the second or third time I went up, and I wore shorts on stage. This was 29 years ago. You don't wear shorts. You kind of still don't.
Except for you, but yeah.
I do, because it's become my character and who I am on stage.
Yeah.
But I still tell people, they're like, well, you wear them. And I go, I've been doing it for 30 years, 29 years. It's my character. It's who I am. But no, if somebody would have came up to me that had been doing it a lot longer and told me, all I know is it was hot out. So I wore shorts to the show. Somebody came up to me after the show and said, hey, I saw you last week. You're funnier. You look funnier when you dance with shorts on. And I was like, okay, I'm going to wear shorts. Funnier than, and no one told me. All they did was talk about me behind my back and say, why is this guy wearing shorts? Who the hell does he think he is? But no one told me I shouldn't, not even the club. Because I was just an open micer, so they probably didn't care and stuff. But I mean, I know for a fact there's club owners out there right now. You send a video out with shorts on, you're not working at their club. They don't hear anything you're saying. They're not hiring you. And so, I mean, it's a silly thing, but I'm a big believer that if you, and I've gotten pretty good at this, judging the festival and stuff like that. If you go up on stage and you look like you put some thought into what you're wearing, then I don't care what you're wearing. But if you go up on stage and it looks like you just rolled out of bed, then I'm like, come on, think about it, put something on. And it's a really good chance for you to help your show grow. Because sometimes if you get into a rut and your show's just kind of going along and you're writing and you're working hard, but you can't figure out how to get to that next step or make something happen. I always say, change your shoes, change your shirt. If you wear a sloppy t-shirt, wear a nice button down, wear a suit. If you're comfortable in a suit. I mean, sometimes just that changing can just change the whole way you feel. My show, I was a prop comic when I started. So I went up with a bowling bag full of a bunch of shit that I made and that I thought would be funny, and some of it was and some of it wasn't, and I would weed through it, and I would have jokes that went with each thing and different stuff. And I wore bowling shoes because I had the bowling bag. And then somebody said, "Hey, wear shorts." So I wore shorts. And then somebody after the show said, "You should wear a bowling shirt." And I was like, "Oh." So I went into a bowling alley and ordered King Louis bowling shirts and had my mother-in-law sew my name on the front and border it. And I made a logo with like bowling pins and everything. And I had like 6 different color shirts that I wore one each night whenever I performed. And that was what I did for years. I did that all through my show in Vegas. That's what, I think when I start headlining again next year will be the first time that I'm not going to do that.
Oh, well, it's got to simplify things too. Cause I don't know if it's the same for men, but I always like, oh, what should I wear tonight? And if you have your persona and stage outfit figured out, it makes it so much simpler of, well, this is what I wear on stage and I don't need to think about that anymore.
I think that's huge. Yeah, if you can get that out of the way and you find something that works, wear it every night. Who cares? It's a different audience. The thing what I was talking about was change what you wear. When I was going up the way I was going up, and then somebody said wear a bowling shirt. When I put that bowling shirt on, I felt like my show went from here to here because I knew I looked silly and goofy, and it freed me up inside to be silly and goofy. So it changed my whole attitude on stage because I knew I looked weird. I knew I looked goofy, and I knew I looked funny as soon as I walked up. And then I kind of made a decision to never do bowling jokes.
Which is what they're expecting, right? So that's funny.
Yeah, and I never did any. I do them if somebody asked why I'm wearing. And then I had jokes, but then I wouldn't do them otherwise because I just wanted people to leave my show going, "Why was he in a bowling outfit?" So it was fun.
Well, walk us through more of your career then. What are some of the highlights and lowlights of your 20, you were saying 29-ish years?
Yeah, March will be 30. I keep saying 30, but a friend of mine in Pittsburgh informed me that it's 29. When I said 30 last time, he's like, "It's 29." And I'm like, "All right." I think he's right. I think I was featuring on the road in 6 months. Should I have been? Nope.
That's what
I understand.
People have been doing it 20-ish years. That seems to be like one of the many things that are so different is that there was an opportunity to do that much earlier than you can get now. And from what I've talked to people, it sounds like it makes you grow faster.
Well, even when I started my hometown club, the Funny Bone, sometimes you would have to go down there for 6 years before they would even let you host.
Okay.
There was still a process, and I jumped the gun. Because before I started comedy, I went to art school, so I have a degree in advertising, and then I wanted money, so I started a vending company, and I took that vending company from me and my partner took the vending company from 8 accounts to 300, and we were doing very well. But the business wasn't going the direction that I wanted, and I learned very quickly that money isn't everything. But I was young and I had too much money, and I had 2 brand new cars, and I understood business. And I started comedy. So when I got out, the first time I went up on stage, I sold my half of the vending company and became a comic from that point on. So I used to get hired because there would be bookers that would say, "You have the nicest promo pack we've ever seen." And I would be like, "Did you watch my video?" And they're like, I'd be like, "You should watch my video." And I learned shortly after that maybe I don't want them to watch my video because it wasn't that great. Just go do the show. So, and then I went to every headliner in the city of Pittsburgh and I said, "Hey, I have 2 brand new cars. I'll drive you to any gig you want. Pick whatever car you want. And if you want to pay for the gas and split the gas, that would be great. If not, I'll eat it." So I was on these guys were smart and they were like, "Oh, cool." So they got a hold of it when they got booked. They said, "I would like to bring my feature." And most of the time that's can be good or bad. And sometimes it was good and bad. Sometimes I went out and had really, really bad shows. And other times I got did well. And early on, and there's still a lot of these out there. There were 2-man shows, so no one had taught me how to host. No one taught me how to set up an audience. No one showed me how to do all the stuff that I teach my hosts, and I've taught a hosting class at the seminar in Vegas. There's an art to it, and no one taught me that. So I would go out as the feature act and come out with music playing, and I danced, and I would tape my face with Scotch tape, and I would turn around to the audience and do the Elephant Man. And if they bought it within seconds, I did good. If they looked at me like this guy's an idiot, I suffered for the next 25 minutes.
Share.
So it was.
Oh, finish your parts.
Yeah. So I mean, it was. So I mean, but I was on the road in 6 months. Like I said, should I have been? No, but it got me. It made me good. It made me better. It really, I was. So I've been working steady since then, nonstop, doing that. So Sherry is dying to know what made my promo so amazing.
Yeah, so Sherry Hardman is a comedian out of the Seattle area. She actually, one of her goals is she'd like to actually have a residency in Vegas. So I'm glad she's here talking with you today. Yeah, your promo pack that you would, I imagine back then you actually sent something in the mail, right?
Everything was sent, and like I said, I had a degree in advertising and stuff, so I understood putting stuff together. And this was all before computers were just starting. And I had bought a computer and was teaching myself how to use like Photoshop and Illustrator and some of those things just to do some stuff, and going to Kinko's a lot and printing. But I had a lot of photos. I mean, I would take photos and put myself in. I remember my one promo pack. I think I have like an original one somewhere, but it was a folder, just a folder that I went and bought at the store, and I had stickers that I would print out, and I'd stick my label on the cover of it, and everything was very colorful and organized, and you open it up and it had a business card, and all this, none of this sounds that amazing right now, but no other comics were doing that. No other comics had their headshot ready to go. No other comics had, they just didn't have this stuff. They would have a handwritten bio. They would have no photos for the producer, the club to use for a flyer, because everything back then was mail it to them. They took whatever they could. I understood that they needed stuff without words around it, so I sent them things that they could use to make their own flyers. Sometimes I would design a flyer for them and send it to them in the promo pack, so they could just throw their date on it and do it. So, I mean, it's funny to talk about the promo kit now. It's really not. I know that at one point I got into, there's a comedy book out, How to Be a Working Comic, by Dave Schwanson. And I was probably doing comedy about a year, less than a year maybe, when he got a hold of me and he said, "Hey, I'm writing this book. I'd like to put you in the book." And I'm like, "Holy crap, for what?" And he goes, your return address labels. Because I had stickers, and I would print out my own stickers on a color printer, and it had my face on it, and it had my logo, and it had my address. And that was what I put in the corner of the envelope, so it stood out. So my envelope would stand out bigger than anybody else's envelope.
Well, and like you said, everything's electronic now, but I'll bet you'd get some people's attention if you took the time to do what you're talking about and actually physically mailed something. Now, maybe it'd annoy people, but also maybe somebody would notice that. And
I think that comics should mail something out all the time now, because it's not being done at all. So you're going to show up. There's so many. I mean, I can talk forever about things that comics do. I always tell comics, when I meet comics, I love to find out what they do, what else you do, what else are you good at. I do this for a couple of reasons. I'd like to know if you can help me with something. I also want to try to tell you how you can offer your services to a comedy club or bookers and stuff, because they need help with everything, and sometimes they can't afford everything. But if you can do something and get you work above somebody else. And I know there'll be some comics that be like, I ain't giving my stuff away. I went to school for that. Well, I had a degree in advertising, and I knew how to do stuff that comedy clubs didn't. So when I would show up at a club, if they didn't have a comment card, I'd go home and make them one and mail it back to them and with directions on how for them to make it. Never asked for money, never did anything. We did the Comedy Cabana in Myrtle Beach as one of our satellites. It was probably 20 years after I had headlined there, but I stayed in contact with the club owners and knew them all this time. And while we were doing the satellite, the owner of the club walks out with a folder with all my old artwork that I did for him and shows it to me. And I'm like, holy shit, this is so old. And he goes, yeah. He goes, we didn't even ask you. You just sent it. And he's like, that's why we headlined you the first time. And I'm like, I don't even care. I don't care why you headlined me. I just wanted to headline. So it just sometimes we just had a comic this year who I had talked about this same scenario to in Florida at the McCurdy satellite. He, when we saw him at the Boston satellite, he's like, hey, I've been doing what you said, offering my services. I'm really good at video editing stuff. So if you guys need any help with video editing, and I'm like, we always need help with video. We get hundreds of videos. So now David is in the process of sending him videos. He just edited some of the ones for one of the satellites that we just finished. I'm not sure. We checked out what he did to make sure it matches what we're doing. He's going to help David finish up the end of the year, all the main events. So hopefully all the comics will get him a little bit quicker because I'm going to have 2 people working on it. And then I'm hiring him next year. I told him, I said, help me finish up this year on a volunteer basis. And then let me see if you like it and see if I like how quick you do it. And if it works for both of us, then you can take over all the video editing. And he's like, well, and David does video edits, like special edits for the comics, and he gets all that money. And this other comic was saying, he's like, well, can I offer other services? And I'm like, yeah, that's great. I go, as long as you don't gouge the comics on a price and you give it to them really fair and they want to pay for it, that's really cool. So he's like, can I cut their video and put subtitles on it for them? And, you know, and I was like, yeah, that's perfect. Let's give the comics that register for the festival another service. That's wonderful.
Oh, that's great. Well, it's a psychological something, you know, not a trick, but a technique in sales where it's a reciprocality thing. So if you give something to somebody, psychologically we're driven then to give something back. And so while people don't want to give things for free, like you're explaining all these examples, it's a good way to actually get them to want to do something for you in return.
Correct. And I never, though, did any of it to try to get something back. I knew that it would come, and so there's many times that I did a lot of things, and I don't think any comic should do that. You shouldn't do it with the pure plan to get something back. You should do it because it makes you feel good and you can help somebody. And I know that's not the best reason some people might want to do it, but if you stay with that attitude, you won't get mad when you don't get something back, because you're not going to get something back on everything you do something for. So there's been bookers that I've done stuff for and club owners and things like that have never acknowledged that I did anything for them or didn't give a shit that I did it. And if I was counting on that every time, I would have gotten burned out and mad and stopped doing it. I just saw a need and thought, if I can help any way I can, I'll do it. And if it comes back, it comes back. If not, I'll just move on to the next person or next. And that's kind of how the festival is too. I just want to help comics, and not every comic's going to want it, but
that's a good point. I'm glad you said that. Don't do things expecting something, because then you're going to be really disappointed. I realize I have the wrong brand colors. Let's see if I can change in the middle. Oh, I can. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
I was like, why is it that color? And I realized I had the wrong brand.
So you wasn't listening to anything I was saying?
Oh, I totally was.
No, I'm just kidding.
Awesome. So you had
great. So I was.
We could talk for. You could do a year course in all these different things that you've done that have made you stand out over the years, because so many good lessons for comics too. Like you said, a lot of them aren't going to be open and receptive to it, but like that's what I've seen of you, is that you really want to give everybody everything they can to help them get better.
Well, every comic that performs, I mean, and this is something that we can only talk about as comics. Anybody you talk to who's not a comic is not going to understand what I'm going to say right now. But that feeling you get when you're on stage is so incredible. And it's hard to, like, you can't describe it to somebody. Like, I don't have to try to describe it to you. You felt it. But to somebody who's not a comic, it's hard to describe that feeling. I get almost that same feeling when I help a comic get work or succeed at something. It's just fun. It's really enjoyable to watch them. The festival's fun all week, watching comics come up to me and tell me they just talked to an agent or a manager or a booker or something, and they got a week because they were hanging out with them and bought them a drink. And I'm like, that's great. That's so cool. Yeah, I love that. You know, and yeah, it's just fun. It's a lot of fun that way.
That's great. So 6 months in, you're featuring, sending out your promos. What other highlights in the last 29?
I mean, I was just a road comic for a lot of years, and probably I'm really bad with time remembering, probably because of this accident. But I was in a major car accident coming home from a gig.
Oh no!
And had to be out of the car and life flighted, and I would not
literally risked your life for comedy then.
Yeah, I wouldn't wish it on anybody, and but it was probably one of the best things that happened for my show. Not that I was going up on stage like, oh, I survived and it changed that, but it caused my whole show to change because I was off the stage for a while, and I used to do a game show with another comic, and it was called Mike and Tim's Totally Stupid Game Show, starring Brad and Joe. And we did hundreds of colleges. And that week that happened, we had 2 weeks of some of the best college gigs we ever had booked that we had to cancel. And I was off the road for, I think, a month. And that was the longest I'd ever been off in the 9 or 10 years leading up to that. It was crazy. And when I went back on stage, I couldn't remember my show, and it caused me to change the way I did my show, and my show really evolved in it, and I liked where it went. But at that same time, my wife and I had been married for 10 years, and we flew out to Las Vegas for our 10-year wedding. We had gotten married in Vegas, and then we flew back out for our 10-year wedding anniversary to just go back out for, you know. And while we were there, we were going to shows and different things, and I remember just counting heads and going, oh man, if I could just get a room and make a couple dollars, like this is a $60 ticket or this is a $100 ticket, but if I had a $20 ticket. So my wife and I sold our house in Pittsburgh and moved to Vegas with my mother-in-law, and the three of us moved out with our animals. And I found a showroom. Well, it wasn't a showroom, it was just an empty room. And I went to the GM of the hotel and said, I'd like to do my show in here 5 nights a week. And he's like, there's no showroom. And I said, I'll build the showroom. So I drained my bank account and built a showroom. On the same day that I was going to sign the contract for my new showroom, my wife came home in the middle of the day, which was unusual. She was very upset, which was unusual. She had just lost her job in Vegas. And I'm like, I'm supposed to go sign a contract for a showroom and today. And she's like, yeah, that's what we moved here for. And I'm like, you're crazy. So I built a showroom and started doing my show out there. And then I started producing other shows, and it was starting to go pretty good. And that's when I got one of my hosts that was the regular host of my show. I started telling him about the World Series of Comedy that I had done in Pittsburgh. And I'd done a different version of the festival twice in Pittsburgh, where we gave away, we did an entire month at the Funny Bone, and we gave away $10,000, and it was money driven. Yeah, what happened was I was on the road as a comic, and I'd come home to my home club, and I'd say to the owner, I'd be like, hey, this comic just opened up for me. They're really funny. You should hire them. And he'd be like, And I was like, I'm like, I enjoyed working with this person so much all week. Their show's so funny. I want people that I know in Pittsburgh to get to experience this comedy. And I just want them to be able to see it. And so I went to him and I said, what's your slowest month? And I forget what month he said. And he told me, and I said, how much do you spend on talent for the month? And I think it was like 14,000. I said, give me 10,000. Give me $1 for every person who walks through the door, and give me every show, and I'll pack this club for 1 month and make you more money than you ever have. I didn't know if I could do it or not. So on Tuesday nights, we had an amateur contest that I ran every Tuesday for the month, and the winner won a couple $100 or something like that. On Wednesday and Thursday, we had a host contest, and the winner would win a couple weeks of hosting at the club, and that was mostly like all the local comics did that. And then on the weekends, we had a feature contest, which the winners would win. I got the owner of the club to guarantee me 3 weeks of feature work. When it was over, he ended up giving out 8 weeks of feature work, and we gave out $10,000.
Wow.
So it was really cool. And then we did it, I think that we did that in 2007, maybe. And then I moved to Las Vegas. Might have been earlier than that. Anyways, I moved to Las Vegas. The next year he wants me to do it again. So I fly back from Vegas and stay here for a month in Pittsburgh and do it again. And then the next year he's like, we got to do it again. And I'm like, I moved to Vegas to do my show. I don't want to do this anymore. And when I got my host at my show in Vegas, I told David, this is a different David, about that. And he's like, we got to do it again. And I go, I don't have money. I don't have $10,000 to give away. That was the club that gave it to me. I can't do that. So for probably a year, 2 years, I had a box. Every time I have a business idea, I would have a shoe box full of my thoughts and any notes, and I'd throw them in there. So every year I'd get that out and kind of rework it. And I'm like, where can I get the money? How can I get the money to give away? And then I was like, well, the money kind of hurts it. Because then bigger name comics do it just for the money, and the feature comics don't really get the exposure that I wanted to get out of this. And I was like, man, work would be cool. So I called every club that I had headlined for and featured for and worked for and knew every booker, and I lined up 37 weeks of work for the first year. And then I called, then I invited all the clubs. Then I went to the GM and I said, hey, I'm going to have a festival here. There's going to be 100 comics that come out and perform all week. I need free hotel rooms for industry. You learn a lot. I didn't understand, I forget how you say it, hotel room nights. Like I said, I need like 20 weeks of work. I mean, rooms or whatever. But anyways, I was way off on the number. And it was hundreds of room nights I needed as opposed to just rooms. I was saying I need 20 rooms. But the room nights were, anyway, so they almost canceled it like right before, because he was like, I can't give you all these room nights. And I'm like, well, you're going to get all the bar and the food and all, and I'm selling all this, and I don't know if it's going to work or not. I'm just selling the shit out of this. And the first year, there's 101 comics in the contest. They all confirm and come out, get ready to come out, and I got 15, 20 industry comedy club owners that are coming out for their free hotel room in Las Vegas. And I'm putting together the whole schedule on booking and judging, and I'm like, well, I guess I should have some seminars during the day. And I had a couple of people contact me that found out about this and was like, hey, I do these seminars, going to come out? And I was like, sure. So I scheduled, I think that maybe the first year I might have already had 3 or 4, maybe 5 seminars. And then I had, I forget, I lost my train of thought. And then all of a sudden, comics who had registered for this thing that didn't make it were like, can we come out? Because we know there's going to be industry. And I was like, oh, shit. I didn't even think of that. I didn't know that there was going to be other comics that would want to come out and be around this. So I threw together some late night shows really fast because I knew if they came out, they'd want to perform. So that happened the first year, and we ended up with about 140 some comics. And the second year was probably my worst year because I didn't know if I could pull it off again. I didn't know if I'd gotten lucky. So it's pretty hard to be around. I was nervous wreck the whole year. And like people are coming up to me going, "This is a new Montreal Comedy Festival. This is incredible." And I'm like, "I'm just a comic. I'm just some guy that threw some shit together. I don't know what I'm doing." And the next year went great, and then it's been going crazy ever since. And now we average about 160 to 170 comics to come out. We get anywhere between 25, 30 to 40 club owners, managers, bookers, Carnival Cruise Line, college booker. Like it's just keeps going. We've had entertainment director for America's Got Talent come out. I mean, just different things. That's my job right now. We just got done with the satellites, and all I'm doing right now is emailing, calling, texting. Every booker, club owner. It's time. Plan your trip.
So was it this? That's amazing. The whole story of how it started out with the $10,000 prize, and it's brilliant to realize that ruined it because you're going to get people that want the money. That $10,000 is kind of life changing.
I did it 2 years that way, and the same guy won it.
Oh.
I didn't have the rule that you couldn't register again. And this dude, who we've become really good friends and stuff, but he won it both years. And then when I didn't do it to third, he's like, "Hey man, my daughter's going to school. And I'm like, "I'm not doing it again. I'm not giving you $6,000 again this year." But he understood contests, and he had a great show. He's a headliner, and he does a lot of cruise ships now, and but at that point in his career, he had an incredible showcase show that he knew how to keep. He was beating guys that have been doing it way longer than him because they didn't know how to get it down to that 7-minute or whatever. I can't remember how much time I gave him at that point. So yeah, it's evolved a lot.
So when you first started, was it just the main event in Vegas, and then the satellites came as it grew?
Yeah, we did the main event, and then a very good friend of mine who owned Good Nights Comedy Club in North Carolina, and he was my partner in the game show that we did. Brad, he was named Brad Reeder, and Brad's like, "Oh man, we should do satellites, like smaller versions of this all over the country." And I'm like, "I don't have time." And I moved to Vegas so I don't have to travel. I don't want to travel. I was in a car accident. I almost died. I want to just do my show, and I'll do this festival once a year. So then he's like, no, we got to do this. I'm like, you run them. I'll show up. So he kind of organized them a little bit, but not to as much liking as I wanted. And the second year we did 4. And then we did 6. Then we did 8. Then we did 12. And that's where we're at now, 12. But I think it's going to go back to 6 or 8 next year.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
There's some changes happening in the festival for next year. I haven't announced them yet. You could be the first. I've talked about them with some comics and stuff like that, but yeah, there'll be some changes made next year. 12 is a lot of work for me and my team. I think if we cut them down, it'll be better for the festival. There'll be some comics that are upset and stuff. We're going to add, I'm hoping, I may make this announcement, talk about this right now, and then the clubs, when I start to talk to the clubs, they may say no, but I go up every night. I had my own show in Vegas. Then when I moved to Vegas, I had my own show, and I headlined in Vegas for 10 years, 5 nights a week, going about an hour to an hour and 15 every night. I loved it. It was fun. It ended. My mother-in-law passed away. I decided to move back to Pittsburgh to be near my parents and help them out. And I knew I could produce this festival from anywhere. But the festival has taken over my life. And I love it, and I want to keep doing it, but I'd like to headline. I'm a comic, and I want to get on stage and perform. And but I also don't want to travel as much as I Like I could easily do the 12 satellites and travel to 24 clubs. If I, that's kind of what a road comic would do. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to travel about 12 to 14 weeks a year, and I'm happy with that. So my plan next year is to do 6 to 8 satellites, and then 6 to 8. We're trying to figure out what to call them, showcase shows, or they're going to be WSOC Records recording shows. We started WSOC Records because of the festival. Somebody talked to us once. They're like, I was trying to record it and get it on TV and do all kind of stuff. And a comic, John Wynn, who won last year, he's like, why don't you do audio? And I'm like, I don't know. Is there money in audio? Is there any way to help comics with the audio? And he goes, yeah. So, and it's easier. So I was like, okay. So we spent all last year recording every show. So we got better at it. After every show, we'd listen to the audio. We would watch YouTube videos on what I needed to buy. I'd buy microphones. I'd buy other things. We figured it out. We got it good. And then by the main event, by the last 1 or 2 satellites of last year in the main event last year, we ended up getting really good audio. And we've already released 2 CDs with comics tracks on them. And we're going to, one more from last year's main event, we're going to release soon. And then we're going to release another 12, one from each satellite coming up. So by all those are going to be released before the main event this year. So our thought process for next year is we'd like to record some comics doing longer sets. So if with all the access that I have to clubs and they like the festival, they like me, we're thinking about doing 6 to 8 WSOC recording shows where we would come back and whoever's hosting my shows would host those shows too. Or I might end up hiring satellite host and showcase show host. I'm not sure yet. I'm still going through that process. And then we would pick feature acts that we either had won satellites last year or that are really done well. And we usually do 6 shows for each satellite, and I'd like to do the same thing for these recording shows. And then I would have 6 guest spots. So comics who register for the festival would earn a guest spot in one of these shows. So there would still be spots given out through the registration of your festival. You could get into a satellite, and you can also win a spot in one of these shows to do a 10-minute set that we're going to record and put onto a CD. So our goal would be with each one of these showcase shows is to end up with one CD that has 6 comics on it going 10 minutes each, and one CD that has one comic doing a 25 to 35 minute set. Throughout the week, we could, if they did 25 minutes each night, we could, and then I would close the show. And if we get any recordings from me, great. If not, I don't care. So it'd be fun. That's the plan, I think, what we're going for next year.
Oh, interesting. So it's I love how it's evolving, and even though it's meeting your needs and desire to get on stage, it also is still the spirit of the World Series of Comedy of just giving comics opportunities that they wouldn't have otherwise. So it sounds really exciting.
Well, there's so many comics that I've gotten to know, and the festival is set up in such a way. I'm a real big stickler for the rules. I won't change the rules for anybody. I've lost friends. I've lost booking agents that have gotten mad at me. I've had comics get mad at me, and I won't change the rules. But the good thing about it is I can become friends with comics because they know it doesn't matter if we're friends. If you don't submit the right video, because it's not just me that chooses. I have a whole team of people watching the videos. My score is just a small part of the score. And what I'm getting at is with the WSOC recording shows, there's so many comics that I've become friends with that I just want to work with. It'd be fun to watch them perform all week and do well in front of a club, and maybe they get to feature at a club that they hadn't even gotten into yet, or and they're only getting to go there because they're coming as part of a World Series event. So it's another way for more comics to get work and for me to get to headline. So
very cool. Yeah. I'm excited to see what the big reveal, how it goes. Yeah.
Working on it. If anybody's watching this, they have thoughts, get a hold of me. Email me.
I want to go back a little bit too, because I know I've heard you before talk about hosting tips, and you're right. It's hard to find. Actually, I want to do a whole episode of this show just on hosting. So that's a whole other episode show. But I know you've talked about it. And I remember the first time that I was going to host, but I was going to host an open mic, and I went and read everything I could find. And I think I only found one article that talked about how to host. And it's really interesting because it's a whole different skill set. And so what you talked about in the beginning stages of World Series of Comedy that you had a host contest. I'm curious, what does that look like? How do you feature hosts in one show?
It was probably not done right. That part. I mean, it was basically, I don't want to call the guys amateurs, but it was the newer comics in Pittsburgh who were just starting out, and I gave them 5 minutes, and whoever won got the host. Nobody told them how to host, or they weren't actually hosting on stage. It was just whoever won that and got the job of hosting.
Okay.
I should have taught them when they won how to host, but I didn't know. I was still learning. There's been things that have happened. Comics, when you look, do you want some tips on this or no?
Yeah. Go. Yes, please.
Comic, when you go into a room and you see an audience, they're not an audience yet. They're just a bunch of individuals sitting at tables. They're not an audience until you make them an audience. When my wife and I went out to Vegas for our 10-year wedding anniversary, I had been doing comedy then for a while, and we went to see Cirque O. It's in Bellagio. It's a big show. And there was probably 1,000 people in there watching that show. Wow. I mean, it's pretty big. Maybe I'm way off on the numbers. Maybe it was 500. I don't know. But I remember as an entertainer, I was listening to everybody talking, and I'm thinking, how are they going to shut all these people up to start the show? And while I was thinking that, two guys with an inner tube that were mic'd, but you could hardly hear them. They were talking very low. They come out with this great, because those shows about water. So they come out with this great big inner tube and this huge stage, and they start rolling this inner tube across. It's a great big white fat inner tube, and they're dressed up as Cirque du Soleil characters, and they start rolling this inner tube from one side of the stage to the other. The whole time they're fighting. They drop it on the audience in the front. They're just fighting, but they're not loud. They're just fighting amongst themselves. By the time that tube got from this side of the stage to this side, you could hear a pin drop in that room. Everyone had gotten quiet. Everyone had stopped talking, and everyone was paying attention to what was going on stage. And I remember sitting there as an entertainer going, holy fuck. Maybe I shouldn't swear. I don't know.
No.
I was amazed. I was like, it's turned all these people are ready to hear what happens now. And then the curtain went up, and I was like, this is incredible what they just did. And then we went to sell the books, went to go see the Blue Man Group. And there was a group of us that had went out for our 10-year wedding. So there was 10 of us talking, and everybody's talking all over the place. Once again, I'm thinking, how are they going to shut these people up? All of a sudden, I hear a whole group of people go, happy birthday, Carol, whatever they yelled. And I was like, what is that? What is that? There's a little ticker that's going across the front. It's like, hey, everybody, on the count of 3, wish Carol a happy birthday. So then half the room just yelled it. But everyone else goes, what are they doing? All of a sudden, the entire room, by the third one, the entire room's sitting there going, yell it out in unison. Read, yell out in unison. And I'm like, well, we can't do that as comics in a regular comedy show. We don't have that technology. We can't. But we have our voice, and that's what we have. So I tell anybody who's working for me as a host, and any host in any show, but you got to make them applaud or clap or work together at least 3 times. The easy thing to say is, hey, I'm Joe Lowers. I'm your host tonight. Please give me a round of applause. Now, if you walk out as a comic or send me a video to try to get into the festival saying, give me a round of applause or all the cheerleading bullshit, you're going to lose points. It's not what you should be doing as a feature comic, but as a host, you have to do the cheerleading bullshit. So the easy thing is give it up for, give me a round of applause. Make me feel welcome. They applaud for you. Your host, your feature act is so-and-so. Make them, they're in the back. Let them hear it. That's 2. Your headliners from wherever, give him a round of applause. That's 3 times they've now worked together. Now you throw out a little joke. What happens so often is the comic wants to get right into their material. They go right into it. The audience isn't ready. That joke flops. They go into a panic state. This whole show then turns to shit. So it wasn't that the joke wasn't good. They just weren't ready to listen. So do the 3 things. Throw out, I always say, and give it up for this guy's shirt, or give it up for something that they might laugh at, And if they laugh, then you can kind of tell yourself, okay, they're ready. Let me go into my material. If they don't laugh, then you can say, and give it up for the staff. You might have to do a couple more. It's a rowdy crowd. Once they're all working together, then you can tell your first joke. And then tell that joke, and hopefully it goes well and they're listening. Because otherwise you just can kill the whole show by not getting them warmed up first. You have to turn them into an audience. You have to make them work together. When they do stuff together, we started doing, we want to get extra laughter for our recordings. So we tell both my hosts say, hey, we need to calibrate our mics, which is not true.
Oh my gosh. I've seen, because I watched all 6 shows in Phoenix, and I've seen that, and I thought it was just getting them to act together. But I love this behind the scenes stuff.
Together. Yeah, but we started doing it, and I'm like, I love this, because it's the same thing as what I've talked about with hosting. Because now we tell them, give us a little laugh, and give us a little laugh, and we're like, give us a medium laugh, and then give us a big laugh and applaud. Now they're all doing that because we're directing them to do it. And it seems like it's been helping the shows even more. Because now they're like, oh, we get it. And if somebody's got a really loud laugh, I tell my host, I'm like, don't pick on that person for having a weird laugh, or they won't do it anymore. Let it be. You want that. So it's fun.
That's another little hidden tip too. Don't pick on somebody in the audience for their laughing, because it shuts them down. Yeah.
If you call them out, I've done it headlining, but that's different. But as a host, even if you're featuring or whatever, you probably, I can go off. Like, I hate when a comic's like, don't laugh at that. Well, that's why you're saying this shit you're saying. Yeah. If they laugh, then you have to, you want them to laugh at everything. And then you can be like, yeah, thank you for laughing, but that hurts, or whatever. Go a different route, but don't tell them not to laugh, because you're saying the next joke they're saying, they're going, well, am I supposed to laugh at this, or should I not? And as soon as you put doubt in their head, they're done.
They're like, we got in trouble the first time, so I'll just sit here and be quiet.
Yep.
Do you have a tip for the opposite, though, where sometimes you've got an audience that just feels like they're more of like, they're nodding, but they're not quite comfortable with letting it out or something like that?
Man, that's a hard one. When I was on the road as a comic, I used to hate Friday shows. Because Friday they're tired. They just got off work all week. But it took me years. No one told me this, once again. It took me years to understand what was happening on Fridays. I'd go up. I'd think I'm eating shit the whole stage. I think it's going terrible. And then after the show, people come to me and go, you were great. Can you sign this? And I want to buy your shirt? Or I'm like, what the hell were you watching? I'm like, I don't understand. You didn't give me shit. You made me work my ass off. And it took me years to understand that Friday audiences sometimes are rough. The second show on a Friday can really be bad, because now they've been drinking happy hour and they're a little bit drunk, but they're also tired. When it happens to me in a show, like when I'm headlining, I just start singing "Thank God I'm a Country Boy," and I dance and stuff, and then they're all staring at me while I'm doing it, and then I just go, well, what the fuck do you want? Like, I'm trying to figure it out. And then that kind of usually loosens them up. As a host, sometimes you just have to deal with that. And you have to pay attention to how the next person goes. I have to tell my hosts all the time. Gavin just had a couple shows in Detroit where we were joking around. Every time he came off stage, I was like, "You're doing a great job," and he's like, "Fuck you." But he hated the audiences. They were not giving him anything, but I think he did an incredible job because the show went well and he was continued to fake being happy on stage. I know what Kevin can do. Kevin's super funny. He's very talented. If he was featuring or headlining a show, he would have tore them apart for not laughing at something like I did when I went out at the end of the night. I went out and tore them apart for not laughing or not showing us stuff. And they were laughing. They loved it. But Kevin did his job as a host. So, I mean, as a host, it's hard sometimes. You're going to stand there and everyone's going to walk by you and tell everybody else good job and not tell you, but you have to know that they're getting told good job because you did your job properly. If you didn't do your job properly, not as many comics are going to get told good job. And there's some comics that can go up after the audience isn't warmed up good and pull it out, but it's a lot of work to do that. And when you go up to a well-set audience, that's beautiful as a comic. That's great. So, I mean, when they're not giving you what they should, like I tell my guys who host for the festival, I'm like, listen, if somebody yells out, don't be mean to them. Don't yell at them. Just say, hey, that's great. If you need to get that out, get it out now while I'm here. Anytime you see me, if you feel like you need to yell and screw up my show, so just do that. But please, be respectful to the comics that are coming up. They're part of this contest. They want to win this thing, and just show them respect, but you don't have to respect me. That's terrible as a host. You don't want that. You don't want to be that comic. You don't want to have to be the guy taking that shit. But that's what you have to do as a host sometimes. You got to take it and let them. So, I mean, if they're not giving you what you want, that's a hard one. Yeah. Sometimes
so
audiences.
Host has to develop the thickest skin and.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not like my very first host that I ever had for this festival. He was okay when he started, and then throughout the year, I think he did it for 3 years, the first 3 years of the festival. He got really good, and then he was getting work at featuring at a lot of the clubs we were going to and things like that. And a lot of people were coming up to him after the show going, "You were great. You were one of the best ones in the show." That's the problem. And I knew, and he came up to me, he goes, "I think this is my last year." And I go, "I know." Because when you start out, not that you should never not try. You should always try to beat the comic after you. I hate when a comic says, "I pulled back because I didn't want to hurt them." No, if they can't follow you, then they should be in the spot they're in. Don't ever hold back. Bring everything you got. Make the show better. But sometimes as a host, you got to do the hosting job and the host stuff. So I guess what I just said about holding back, I mean, you still have to follow the rule. There's more rules for a host to follow than a feature or headliner. But some, I mean, you can be a good host and get laughs. It's a lot of work. I've watched the guys throughout the year not get a lot as they go over the rules and all the stuff with the festival, but then they get into their set and get to do stuff, and then we can see how the audience is really going to be. Because most time audiences don't want to hear all those rules.
So hosting is good for a codependent person because your job is basically to make lift everyone else up, make them look really good, and then just be humble. And
yeah, it's funny because people don't really want to host, but I think every single comic, when you go out to an open mic, you should ask to go up first and try to go up first and try to be good at that. Because I did that early on. I would go to every open mic that I went to and go, "Can I go up first?" And they're like, "What?" And I knew that when I started working on the road, or I was already doing some stuff on the road, that I was doing 2-man shows. So I had to be kind of the host and the feature act. No one told me that, but I thought if I could figure out how to get good early, then I would do better when I was on the road. If I would have understood these hosting rules, now I think if I went out on the road now and did a 2-man show and I went up first, it would be great because I'd go out and host. For if I have to do 25, I'm going to take 5 minutes and just host. You guys are wonderful. Thanks for being here. It's going to be great. I'm your feature act. I'm going to do 20 minutes when I'm done talking to you about this. Make sure you buy a drink. Your headliner's from here. Everything. Put your hands together. Applaud, applaud, applaud. And then I'm going to go to material. And it's going to be much better than the way I used to start. I just started like my show started, and it was terrible most of the time.
That has me flashing back to a show that I was on, and I'm like debating. I don't know if I want to share too many details to. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but it was. I didn't realize that, so I was on the show. I didn't know what position I was going to go. We didn't know who was hosting the show, and then the guy who booked us all said, "Hey, we're just gonna do," and I know there's a bunch of different names for this, but like daisy chain, or like basically like you go do your set and then you bring up the next person and then that person brings up the next person. And but the thing was that everybody was on the show wasn't in the green room yet. They hadn't arrived on site when this was announced. And so I was 2 minutes before showtime. Hey, Carol, you're gonna go first. And then I'm thinking like, I didn't have this information from you. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to go up and do my set. And I didn't realize that I needed to shift because I was too in my head about like trying to remember what I was going to do. I didn't realize I needed to shift. And then I needed to bring that, since I was the first comic that was going to be on stage, I needed to do that instead of just starting into my material. And then to top it all off was that the guy running the God mic at the club, he announces that I'm going first, and he says, "Your host for tonight." And so then all the comics that were showing up at this point heard that I was hosting. And so they think I'm hosting, but I'm like, I'm only supposed to bring up the next person. And so, yes, of course, I go up there and I go into my material and it's dead quiet. And I'm just like, oh, I wish I was doing better. And then I bring up the next guy. But then because he's supposed to bring up the next guy, but he doesn't know, then they're waiting for me to come back up and host the next person coming up. And I'm like, wait. So anyways, it's just fun to have those learning lessons. And now that I know what I know, I wish I could go back and do that. So do you have a fun
next guy up then?
What's that?
I said you could have just went up and hosted.
I could.
Like, all right, I'm hosting.
I could have. Yeah. I should have. Yeah. And do you have any fun like learning lessons learned, bomb stories that memorable funny stories?
I got punched once.
Oh.
I did a show. This isn't the punch story, but I mean, I went up on stage once, and somebody heckled me, and I tore them apart. I just shredded them to nothing. And I came off, and the headliner, he's like, "What the hell was that?" And I go, "Well, that guy was mean." And he goes, "Look at you." He goes, "Look at how you're dressed." That's when I had my bowling. He goes, "You look silly." He goes, "You can't be mean like that." And that was some huge advice for me, because I still, to this day, before I go on stage, I'm like, silly, 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 silly. And I'm probably maybe meaner or rougher on people now because I've gotten better at it, but I do it in a fun, silly way, to the point where people are like, "Did you just call me an asshole for an hour?" I'm like, "I like that." So that's a really good lesson, is know what you look like, know what your appearance is on stage, and don't like the way some people can get away with certain things. You watch a comic and you're like, "Man, why can they say that?" I have it all the time. Comics are like, "Why do you get away with the stuff you say?" And I go, "Look at me. I'm a fat, bald, old man. I don't look like I'm going to hurt anybody." So even when I wasn't bald and when I wasn't fat, I still looked silly and goofy, and you just need to know what you look like. So I was doing my show in Manassas, Virginia, and I see a guy sitting there has no teeth, And I tell myself, don't say nothing, don't say nothing, don't say nothing. And I go up and I tell my first joke, and he says something. And I go, where's your teeth? And then I went off for 25 minutes just ripping the shit out of him. And after the show, I probably deserved it. But after the show, his buddy comes up to me, and I'm talking to a whole group of people who liked my show, and his buddy comes up to me and says, we didn't like your show. And I go, did you like the other comic? And they're like, yeah. And I go, well, that's half the show. So I'm like, I don't really want to talk to you if you didn't like me. I'll talk to these people who liked me. I turned away, and he wanted me to get mad, but I don't have time for that shit. Probably like 10 minutes later, a guy walks up and taps me. The other guy taps me on the shoulder. He's like, we think you got a bad sense of humor. And he sucker punched me. And I remember as I was getting hit, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a good story. That's a comic for you. I'm like, this is going to be great. I walked the whole room. Well, I did 2 shows in Elko, Nevada. And we do the first show on Friday. And Saturday afternoon, myself and the other 2 comics are sitting in a restaurant having lunch. And the server comes by, and I see her, and I say, hey, how are you? And she goes, not good. One of our regulars died last night after your show. And I'm like, oh, man, sorry to hear that. She goes, yeah, the FBI's in town investigating. I'm like, oh, shit, he didn't just die. Like, he was murdered. So she's like, yeah, we're going to have a candlelight vigil in the room tonight while you guys are performing. And then walks away. The other comics go, how do we deal with that? They go, I don't know how to deal with that. The room was set up where it was in a bar, and you were on stage, and right in front of you was probably it seated about 80 to 100 people. And the bar went around a bend, and off to the side, there was about 30 people over there weeping and crying with candles. This 80 to 100 doesn't know why. I tell the other comics, I go, just go up and do your stuff, for the people that are there. Don't, bring that up and stuff like that. So I'm in the back with the GM, and one of the guys comes back. He doesn't know I'm the headliner, and he goes, before the headliner goes up on stage, I'd like to go up and make an announcement. And I go, hey, man, I'm the headliner. I don't think I can follow that. I go, all these people here, they don't know what happened. I do. And I understand. I said, I'll bring you up when I'm done. We'll make an announcement. It'll be really nice. I'll go overboard to bring you up. He storms off. I said to the GM, I go, better have security or somebody ready because it ain't going to go well. And they up on stage, and I got the 80 to 100 pretty quick. I have a tendency to get my audience really fast. And so they were kind of into it. Well, then these people come up and they start sitting in the front row with their backs to me, and they're throwing stuff at me. And they're yelling stuff at me. And I'm like, I go, it's me or them. Get them out of here. I go, you guys told me the guy loved comedy. He loved my show. And now you want to ruin my show for these people. I said, I don't think that's what he would want to happen. I go, burn your candles out, blow your candles out, and go mourn somewhere else. Get the fuck out of this showroom. And then I said to the audience, I go, it's them or me. Which one do you want? And the audience is like, you. And I go, get the fuck out. So they marched them out. And then after the show, I'm like, hey, I'm going to go get something to eat down at the diner or whatever. And they're like, nope, you're going to your room. And I go, I need to eat. And they're like, there's 100 people outside that want to kill you. Like, so I didn't get to eat that night. Yeah, that was an interesting night.
You're going to bed without supper, Joe.
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell?
You've been a bad boy.
Yeah, that was crazy. There's been many bad ones. You try to, it's like you put them out of your head. 29 years, I'm like, if I thought of all the bad ones, I would have quit it 5 years in.
And it's one of my early mentors had said, like, every time you bomb, there's a lesson there. There's something that you didn't know how to do. So, but also I don't know. Some situations it's like there's no winning. There's no winning that announcement that there's people, half the audience is mourning somebody's loss. It reminds me of probably one of my biggest. It's for a long time. It's probably going to be the biggest disaster bomb. I don't even know what to classify it as, but it was like everything that possibly could be a challenge or wrong about a scenario was all rolled into one. And it was one of those situations where I was featuring too early, and so it was for Seahawks Fan Fest, and 40,000 people converge up in Seattle for this event, and it was like this big banquet dinner that they had every year. And they had a silent auction, and all the former players' moms were there. And I find out like 2 weeks before that there'll be children as well, which I'm like, my material's not child friendly. And it was Andrew Rivers was our headliner, and I was going to be that feature spot that also there was no host. And I, again, too early, I didn't know how to do the host spot. But also it was one of those where, the guy who was putting the whole thing on just loved comedy. And so he's like, I'm just going to add, we're there at the beginning. And the guy is saying how to both Andrew and I about, he's like, hey, I just love comedy. So I thought that we'll just add that to this event this year. And Andrew says, oh, that always goes well.
And they don't know what's happening.
We walk into the room too, and it's like bright lights, a big banquet room in a casino, and round tables, and everybody's there because they want to just talk with everybody else. They don't know that there's also going to be a comedy show as part of this event.
That's the worst.
And we also don't know exactly when we're going to perform. It's just one of those things of like, when it feels right, we'll bring you guys up. And so the next thing in the agenda is a fundraiser tearjerker video. A lady does a presentation about how the orca whales are all dying and we need funds for them. And then we're told, we're told you guys are going to go up after this. And I'm like, oh, yay. And so, but then the producer guy, or the guy who produces the whole thing, put on the event, he goes, hey, before you guys go up, I'm going to go up. And I think like, oh, this is good. He's going to bring them back. He's going to get them all excited and rally. And I'm like, that's good. That's perfect. That's what we need right now. But instead, he goes up and says, hey, I'm so glad you all came out. It means so much to me and my wife because her mom just died of cancer, and the energy just drains even more from the room. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is maybe going to be the biggest. This is going to be the biggest challenge in my life, but I'm going to do it. And I pulled out like every joke I had ever written to make my 25 to 30 minute set. And thank God for Andrew Rivers, because he was sitting right in front of me. And throughout this room of, I don't know, 200-300 people probably, I could see there were people, because the bright lights, thankfully, I could see there were people that were following and that were laughing. And thank God that Andrew was up there and giving me a little bit of like, he was listening and he gave me some laughs. And that's the only thing that kept me going. But it was like, right when I knew I hit my time, I was like, all right, and Andrew Rivers, come on up here. So, it was the biggest payday I'd ever had. It was the biggest gig I'd ever had. And it was just like everything that could possibly, I don't even know if there's anything more that could be wrong. Nobody got hit, I guess, but it was,
there's somebody, I drove from Pittsburgh to Pulaski, New York. I think Plattsburgh, New York. I don't know. It's like 12 hours to do a gig, and it's blizzard, snowstorm, terrible. And I fall asleep in the passenger seat, and I wake up, and the headliner that I'm going, the feature that I'm going with, is getting high, going like 70 miles an hour. You can't see the road. I'm like, what are you doing? We got to get there. And then we get to the gig, exact same story you just told. We go, there's a great big banquet room where we're supposed to do comedy. Nobody shows up. So the guy who produces the show says, and I'm the host, and then the guy I rode up with was the middle act, and then the headliner was also from Pittsburgh, but he had went up separate. The guy who produced the show says, we're going to move it into this bar, and we'll just do it in here. But now there's a bar of people that were stuck, can't get home because of the snowstorm, all this stuff, and they've been drinking all night, and they have no idea there's a comedy show that's going to break out at some point. And I'm so new. I'm just like, yeah, all right. There's audience. There's people. They're gonna love this. This is gonna be great. They gotta hear what I have to say. They're gonna want this. And it's a little stage. I'm like, this is perfect. Everything's perfect. And the other guys are like, oh, this is bad. This is bad. And I'm like, no, this is great. And it's like supposed to be. It's 8 o'clock. We're standing around 9, 10. I think it's like 10:30, 11 o'clock. The guy goes, after this song, go up. And I'm like, okay. They're gonna want to hear me. I'm like, hey, I'm Joe Lowers. I'm your host. There's gonna be a comedy show here. And I remember somebody's drinking and they turn and then they just go back and take the drink. And I'm like, oh, they don't give a shit about me. So I struggle through a few minutes and then I see the guy who's produced the show going. Yeah. So I bring up the feature act and he does next to no time at all, like 10 or 15. He's supposed to be 25. And he brings him off. So now I'm supposed to bring the headliner off, but the headliner's in a room getting high. And he's not there. So I go to bring him up and he's not there. So now I'm stuck up there again for 10 minutes. And the headliner comes walking in and I go, oh, there it is. And I bring him up and he goes, I had it timed. The other guy should still be up. And I go, no, they cut everything short. Yeah. So that was nuts, man. Yeah. Everything, like you said, everything could go wrong, went wrong. It was pure hell. Crazy.
You didn't have to compete against the dying whales, though.
Yeah, I've had fundraisers where they talk about the person dying and all that kind of stuff, and then they go, "All right, let's."
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, "Oh, you can't play that video first." Like we had this video about the firefighter that lost his life. Oh no, it's not going to be good.
No, but you're supposed to make them laugh and make them feel better. That's easy, right?
Oh. People, and then they're like, "We love comedy," and I'm like, "You don't really love it that much, or you wouldn't do that to us." One of the first college gigs I ever got, I got to open up for Renee Hicks. I don't even know if she does comedy anymore. She was really big at the time then. Black female, I think she was lesbian. I don't know, but she was checking all the boxes for that kind of show and stuff like that, and just killing at it. But I didn't know who she was, but I was very excited to get to open up. I knew there was going to be 1,000 people there, and this is going to be, and I walked out on stage, and they hated me. I remember going back to my hotel room after that show, sitting in the dark of the room, like right before I go on stage, she tells me not to do this, and I'm like, oh, that's half my show. Well, she just took all my stuff away. And it goes back to what you said. I just sat in the hotel room, my head in my room, on my head in my hands, going, what are you doing? And I almost quit. And you're just like beating yourself up. But it goes back to what you said earlier about learning. Every time you learn, every time you only learn when things go bad. You might learn a little bit if the show goes good. But I had a comic once tell me, they're like, I never die on stage. And I'm like, well, then you're not pushing it. You're not trying. And I just had a comic. You might have met her, Tori, Jay?
No, I don't think so.
She did Arizona, I think. Maybe. I'm not sure. We just met her this year. We love her. She's great. She's fun. And she's really been into the festival and just been fun to be around. But after, she just did Detroit. And that's her home club and hometown. So she wanted to do good. I thought she did pretty good. Was it the best I've seen her this year? No. But I thought she did pretty good. And we go out to eat after, like we always do as a group, and talk and stuff. And she's upset. I can see it. And I go, what's up? And she goes, I didn't do good. I go, you did pretty good. You did all right. I go, I've seen you do better, but you didn't, trying to help her. And she goes, I got to do better every time. And I go, oh, I go, you got to take that stress, take that off yourself. Don't think that. I said, you can want to do better every time, but you can't say that you are going to do better every time. Because that'll make the bad ones worse and it'll make it harder. I go, you have to have shows that you don't like in order to get better. I go, this feeling you're feeling right now. I go, do you like it? And she goes, not at all. And I go, what are you going to do about it? She goes, I'm going to work to make sure it doesn't happen again. I go, yeah. I go, so if it's perfect every time, you don't work to get better. You when it goes shitty, the next one, and comedy's so weird, you'll go up on stage, you'll have an incredible show, and you'll go, I got it. I got it figured out. I know what I need to do. And then you go up the next night and shit the bed. You're like, what the hell? I thought I had it figured out. I did everything the same, but you didn't. You did something different. The audience was different. The lighting was different. The host was different. Something just, there's so many factors. And it really takes, somebody told me when I started, it takes 5 years before you can come on stage. And I was like, that's bullshit. That's not true. It's because I was cocky. I think that person was wrong. I think it takes 10 years. That's what I used to think. I now think it takes longer than that. But I think at 10 years in is when you can have a bad show, but the audience doesn't know it. But before that, it's like you have a bad show and you didn't like it. The audience didn't like it. No one, we're like, I didn't like you. You didn't like me. That's just the way it is. At 10 years, you seem to get to a point where you can pull off a show where there's been many times when I had my show in Vegas, I'd come off stage and my wife would be like, you hated them, didn't you? And I go, every minute. Getting pictures with me and autographs, and they were like, you were great. And I didn't like them at all. And that's when you become, I think that's when you become a headliner for real. You're a headliner, but until you can pull a show off where you aren't having fun and let them leave fun, happy.
It's so fascinating. And that's my theory on part of why this is so addictive and hooks us in is that I forgot what it's called, but there's some rule about like gambling, intermittent reinforcement. That's part of what makes you addicted to something, right? So if you gambled and every time you won, it's boring. And so there's this like certain percentage of times that they've figured out that if you win this many times, you'll get addicted to it. But if you won more than that or less than that, it wouldn't be addictive. And I think that's part of what hooks us in with comedy is that like, sometimes it's that high and we want it every time. And it's, it's not. And then we get the next one that's that high. And then you have, maybe it's not a bomb, but it's just not that same high that you had. So that's my theory on why we get so hooked into this.
My wife, there's been many times I'll come off and the show wasn't just okay or whatever. And my wife would be like, and I'll come home and I'm bitching about it or whatever. She's like, why do you keep doing it? This is throughout the years. And I go, remember 2 weeks ago when I had that good show and I come home and told you about that one? I'm still on that show.
Yeah.
This one happened after it and it hurts, but I still think about that one. That one was good. If I can get back to that. Yeah.
Yeah, because if every show was better than the last, we'd quit sooner. It wouldn't be as exciting. I remember my worst hosting bomb to date was pretty recently, a couple of months ago. There were 2 other comics here in the Phoenix area that we had like 3 days in a row that we were kind of doing a little road run. So it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Friday was a brand new show that I booked and produced. Very southeastern corner of this state. There's a little tiny town down there, and killer show. I hosted, the other guy featured, and then headliner. Killer show. Town loved it. Amazing. So we're going to the next one, and it's this club in. Maybe I'm going to say it. This club in Bisbee, and I want to impress the owner there because I want to come back and do more shows, and I want to make that a run that I can do. And I'm like all in my head about like, I want to impress him. And I figured out for myself that when I want to impress somebody really bad, I do terrible. And I have to go in with fun and not care. And so I go in with this. And so unfortunately there weren't any tickets that were sold. So they had somebody go out and bark on the streets and give out free tickets to the show. So this is one thing that made it more challenging because those people are just there killing time before the next thing. They weren't like they hadn't paid money, so they hadn't invested in it. So they were just like, yeah, we'll go check this out. And so I go up and I don't remember if I did the 3 things or not, because I don't remember if I knew it at that point. But basically they were just like, no, they didn't like me, and they were a younger crowd, and I'm in my head too. So I start with my, dating jokes and my mom jokes, and they weren't laughing at anything I was saying at all. And then a guy in the audience starts heckling me, saying he can't hear me, which it was a small room. He could totally hear me. That threw me. And I'm just up there like freeze, like deer in headlights. And I'm just like, what am I doing? And nothing is working. And they're not laughing at anything. And this always works and it doesn't work and anything like that. And I see the guy lighten me. And I know it's too early, but I'm just like, I got to get one pop. I got to get one pop out of him. And I keep trying to get him. And then I see the headliner come up. And it was supposed to be a couple of, like, me hosting, a couple of guest spots, our feature, and then the headliner. And I see the headliner coming up to me and he's mouthing something to me. And I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, bring me up, bring me up. And I'm like, oh, I might as well just go out and dig myself a grave in the desert right now, because I'm never going to get to work at this club, because I know it's the owner of the club that's told the headliner, get your ass on stage, because she is killing this show right now. And it just completely, I had like deer in headlights PTSD after this. And so he comes up, he does, and we don't even know how much time he's doing. He does 45 minutes. So the headliner does 45 minutes trying to get this. And I'm watching him. It takes him about 30 minutes to get the audience to finally start laughing and stuff. So I was like, okay, this tells me how hard this was, this crowd. But thankfully, these guys were so supportive too. So we go outside afterwards and he's like, shake it off. Shake it off. When we walk back in that door, that didn't happen. Let go of all that energy and just go back in and have a good time. And so then the next night, the show that we're on, the headliner, he told me, I want you to host. And I was like, like I'm really like afraid to do it. He's like, no, but you need to get back in there, because if you're afraid to do it, you're gonna be afraid to do it forever. And so I was like, okay, I know I need to do this. And I was so anxious, and I was like, something happens where I'm like, here it is, it's happening again. And I'm like, no, you need to work through this. You need to work through this. And so thank God they were so supportive. And I probably will never get to work in that club ever. But, the other piece that's really, really interesting about this is that before the show, when we got there, there is this lady that comes in, and she is 71 years old, and she's with her husband, and she's dressed in, she was like dressed like she was going to naughty Mardi Gras, like a see-through mesh blue bra, blue sequin hat, garter on. And so she's on Twitter, if anybody wants to follow her. Apparently she's AZ Hot Wife. And her whole thing is that have you heard of her? Her Twitter bio says that she will, I'm trying to think of what I want to say on here. She will have sex with anyone, any number of people at any time, no fees. And so she's there, and her husband likes to film it. And so she's there scouting for people to, take her away for the evening, as before the pre-show. And and so the comics were just like, oh, this looks interesting, until they saw the videos of what was happening, and they're kind of like, oh, this looks like a public health hazard, actually, rather than a good time. And they were sitting right up front and also heckling me as I was trying to host too. So that was the other fun story of this. So quite an adventure. The whole weekend was amazing, and that's my worst hosting bomb story to date.
You definitely learn, like you said, from everything that happens. Even with the AC Hot Wife, you learn that stuff.
Yeah, it gave me some hope that even at 71 years old, people will still want to sleep with me. But
you're gonna have to dirty it up and wear sluttier clothes. But
yeah, apparently.
the older you get, the sluttier the clothes get.
I got a couple of
dress like this.
A couple of decades. Yeah, it was quite an adventure. So, and last thing I wanted to ask you a little bit about, the thing was so fun about the satellite I got to watch you at is your surprise at the end, as you get to do this crowd work bit at the end, and just watching you 6 times in a row just destroy the room. Do you have any, and right now with social media and everything like that, like everybody wants to crush it at crowd work because they think like that's what's going to get them famous and get all the followers. And what do you have to say about, crowd work? Any tips or the state of the union of crowd work or anything like that?
Well, it's funny because I guess it was a year or so ago, a comic asked me if I could teach him to do crowd work, and I said no. And then I watched her show and I was like, oh, wait, if they told this joke this way, they could work it into the audience. And it kind of made me realize there is a way to kind of teach it some. And I taught a seminar last year on crowd work.
Mm.
But one of the things that I think disappointed to most people that watched that seminar was one of the first things I said was, don't do crowd work.
Mm.
Unless you, I mean, when I did it, once again, it's kind of like the short thing. I did it, there's crowd work that I was doing in the very first video that I ever stepped on stage. It wasn't good, and I shouldn't have done it, and no one told me not to do it. They just talked shit about me. And I got good at it because no one ever told me, so maybe that was the best thing that happened to me. There were times when I would go off on a rant in my show, and then I didn't know how to follow myself because I would go off in this rant where I ripped somebody apart or did something that was really funny, and then the audience was like, oh, can we have more of that? And I'm like, I don't have any more of that. I don't know where that came from. And I'm like, I used to have to say, please just listen to my shitty jokes. No, because this is all I have. I'm not going to be able to do that again. Getting work. I mean, if you want to become an internet sensation or whatever and do it, I guess go ahead. But you're probably not going to get hired in clubs. If you want to send it, I had a video that had no crowd work in it. And that was the video I sent out to get work. When I showed up, I did crowd work, and there was many times I didn't get hired back. There's many times that the headliner was like, don't ever have him again. My cocky attitude was, oh, I'm so good he can't follow me. That's not true. The headliner was probably super talented. There was many times it happened. So the headliners that said that were not talented. They just had a different style of show. I didn't understand that. I thought, well, if you can't follow me, then I'm a headliner. It's not the case. They were headliners also. It's just not the right setup for a show. When you do crowd work, you cause the audience to talk and get rowdy, and then that's really hard for the next comic to follow. So if you're trying to get this festival's geared towards feature work and getting work opening up for headliners. So whenever Jason and I are watching the videos or trying to talk to comics about their video, we're always working on looking at it at, can you use this video to get work in a club featuring? If you send out work with a video with crowd work in it, you're probably not going to get hired because they know, and you also limit yourself. It's the same as if you're super, super dirty. If you're a clean, funny comic, you can open up for anyone. If you're a dirty comic, you can only open up for dirty comics, dirty headliners. And some dirty headliners, like myself, I'm pretty dirty when I headline, may not want a dirty opener. I don't care. But some headliners go, hey, I want a clean opener. So now, if you're a dirty feature, you can't even open up. So let's just say you can't open up for any clean headliners. You can only open up for maybe, let's just say, half of the dirty headline. The other half, now you just keep limiting, and there's so many comics out there. And so when you put yourself in that hole, and you're going, man, why is that person getting work? Why is that? Because they're clean. And I had to clean up my show. I used to be able, and no one believes this, but I did a show without saying the F word. I did a show without crowd work. I cleaned it all up so I could get work, so I could become a headliner to do whatever I want. And then I moved to Vegas and produced my own show, and I did an hour of crowd work every night. But that crowd work was built on a basis of real show stuff. I would ask people, where are you from? In my show in Vegas, because everybody's from different areas. If somebody said they were from Canada, I had 10 minutes of Canadian stuff because I'd done shows all over Canada. So I would just do that. But I would work it into the crowd, like I was talking with that person, like, hey, man, you guys got really weird homeless people. Do you have any home? And then I would do the homeless joke about Canadian money. But it looked like I was just having a conversation. It didn't look like I was telling a joke. It looked like I was, and that's where crowd work kind of works. And then people, when they see me several times, they're like, oh, that's kind of the same. You did the same thing. And I'm like, yeah, I learned how to work it so it looks like it's always crowd work, but it's not always. Now, every show that I do, something probably happens that's original. Like somebody says they're from somewhere or done something that I don't know, and I come up with something right there on the spot. But I've learned to stretch that out and work it in. But no matter where somebody said they were from, I probably did a show close by. If they were from South Carolina, I got all kinds of jokes about North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, all lumped in together. So as soon as they said that, I just said they were all from that town. So, yeah, crowd work, it's beautiful. Like, you can write, you can be the best writer in the world. You can write until your fingers are bleeding and write the best joke that you've ever wrote, that anybody's like, this joke is brilliant. And you're never going to get the hearty, strong laugh that crowd work does. So I get why people want to do it. I mean, that's why I do it. I love it. I love messing with the crowd. Every show I go up, and I don't know where it's going to go. I have, when I'm headlining, I have kind of a beginning, kind of a middle, kind of an end. Every single joke I write, which a lot of people say, Joe doesn't write any jokes, but every joke I write involves the audience somehow, some way. I get them to, if I want to get somewhere, it starts off, and then I figure out ways to get into the audience and get more information. And usually that just makes my joke grow and grow and grow. It could start off as a 30-second joke. I tell a joke about an apple on an airplane, and I've told that joke for 25 minutes in my show. But during that joke, I'm off on 20 different tangents. I just keep coming back to it. And I very seldom ever do the punchline to the joke. And I've had people coming back to my show for years going, I've never heard the punchline to that joke. And I'm like, that's not as good as a setup. But it's really not even matters what I'm saying. It's just how I'm getting them involved. And I've had people come back and go, hey, can I be the asshole tonight? Last time I was the asshole. Or they're like, I brought my brother back so he could be the asshole. Last time I was the asshole. And I go, well, if you were the asshole last time, there's a good chance you're probably going to be the asshole this time, too. That you ended up being the asshole. You probably did something stupid that caused me to say it. I mean, it's fun, but I do think it's valuable to know it, to learn it. Just like every form of comedy, if you can become a better writer, if you can because even if you don't want to be a crowd work comic, but it helps you deal with, because no matter what kind of comic you are, someone drunk is going to yell out at some point. And if you just can handle it a little bit, then that's enough that the audience is like, oh, okay, cool. You better not fuck with this guy. Let him finish his stuff. And you can get back to your show. If you don't handle it, then the audiences are like, oh, we wounded him. Let's go get him.
Oh, yeah. Be confident on stage, right?
Yep. Well, confidence comes with stage time. But, yeah, the more stage time you get, the more confident you get. But you've got to, like, and I could be wrong, and maybe somebody will challenge me someday, but I believe I could go up and read the menu and get laughs. Because it may not be what I'm saying about the menu, but I'm going to make sure you laugh at something that I'm doing, the way I'm doing it. And I've done stuff in my show where I've watched the audience go, that's not funny. And I will push it down their throat until they finally go, it must be funny because he thinks it is. And I don't care. Like, I care between us as a comics. I care every time I hit the stage. I want the audience to like me. I want them to laugh at what I'm doing. I want to do good. That's why we do comedy. But if you see me on stage or it looks like I could give a shit. It looks like I don't care about the audience. I don't care what you're thinking. I don't care about anything. And that's how I want it to look like. That way, when I'm in total control that way, I can control what they're going to do, what they're going to say by going after them. And you get better at reading people as a crowd. I mean, you've done it. You've been on stage and you can see when I used to think, though, if I saw somebody sitting with their arms crossed and I felt like I had to get that person, make them laugh. I don't care anymore. I just ignore them. I might say something to them and loosen them up, or if they stay that way, I'm like, I don't need to get you. I used to think, well, I'm going to, and then I would focus my whole show and it would turn bad because that person didn't want to be involved, but I wanted them to be involved. They had to like me, and I would be like, I don't care that all you other people are liking me. I just got to get this guy to like me. And then at a certain point, I went, I don't care if that person, if they're all liking me, that's enough. So that's sometimes at a crowd work, you got to, as any.
Yeah, so it sounds like the summary, the crowd work is, don't worry about it early on. It's a skill you don't really need that much until you're a headliner anyways. And then by then you're going to have so much experience, you'll have these.
Yeah, I mean, I would say don't worry about it. I'd say don't do it if you want to get work. But no matter what I say and anyone says, it's not going to stop a comic who wants to do it. It's the feeling's too good. And I can tell you not to do it so you can get work. And if you're good at it, or if you get this feeling of it at all, it doesn't matter what I say or anybody says. But as long as you understand why you may not be getting work, like when you look at another comic friend of yours and they're getting work in a club, and you're like, why are they getting work and not me? Well, take a look at your show. Is it too dirty? Are you doing too much crowd work? Doesn't mean you have to change it if that's what you want to be. Just know your journey is going to be harder. You're going to struggle a little bit more. So, I mean, if you want to change it or try to change it so you can get more work, then that's just something you have to work on. If you go, fuck it, I want to be dirty, and I'm going to do crowd work because I want to get better at it. Just know your journey is going to be harder. You're traveling a harder path. And comedy is hard enough that I don't know why you'd want to add the extra path.
Well, you know comics enough that early on we want the shortcut. No, just tell me how to be a headliner. I want to skip all the steps. What are the secrets? How do I do it? I want to tour. I want to be in theaters, and I'm 6 months in. Tell me all the steps, Joe.
Well, I mean, I'm so glad there wasn't social media when I started, because there'd be, I'm a headliner, and I wasn't, but there was nobody to tell me I wasn't, and I was getting some headline gigs. So, and I was able to do 45. Was it good? Hell no, it wasn't good. There was a lot of shit and a lot of fluff, and it just wasn't good. And half the time I headlined, it went great, and the other half went okay, and then the other part was just bad, and I still was running around going, I'm a headliner, I'm featuring, I'm only going to go on the road if you take me to headlines. But I mean, that's what it is, and you learn and you get better, and hopefully the festival can help you not make some of the mistakes, or at least know why you're making them and know what's happening when you are. It's up to you. If you don't want to make them, you can make them. Everybody learns at their own pace, their own skill, their own way. One thing when you were talking about how you did at the one gig when you were hosting.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that happened. I think this is really good advice for every comic. If you die at a show, don't talk about it at the show. Act like you did great. When you get in the car or your hotel room with the other comic, you can discuss it. But at the club, I have literally watched comedy club owners' minds change, because they're watching the show. They may think, oh, she's doing okay. And they may be like, man, she's doing good for this shitty audience. The audience was terrible. They should be giving her more. They should be respecting her more. And then you come off and go, man, I'm sorry, that was bad. And now he goes, oh, maybe it wasn't the audience. You can change their mind. If you come off and go, hey, I had a great time and look forward to coming back and thanks for having me, and then walk to the car and go, what the fuck? But don't. So I had a friend of mine come up to me once, and he starts apologizing, and I go, shut up. Because the owner of the club was right there, and he goes, wow. I go, in the car. We'll talk later. And we get to the car, and I go, don't ever talk about it here. I said, you could change the mind. I said, I stood next to him while you were on stage. He was like, man, what a terrible audience. What a terrible audience. He never said, wow, that guy's not doing good. Not once. He just said, I don't like the way this audience is treating him. So if you apologize, you could change his mind. Because they're looking for any reason why it didn't work. So, and it's easier to blame the one guy, not the whole audience.
That's great advice. Yeah. And if you get stuck in that too, then you're going to just, like I was. So I love that they did that. Go outside, shake it off, go back in. We'll talk about it later. So great.
Yep. Yeah. And as comics, we all get together, we hang out, we talk, be honest, and tell each other you had a bad show, you were shitty or whatever, and this is how you can fix it, and try to help. But don't be mean, just try to help.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do it in front of a club owner or a booker. Everything was wonderful. Everything was great.
Yeah. Well, and the last thing I want to talk about is the main event. And so this episode may live on for infinity out there in the universe, but we're recording this on July 28th, 2023. And so you still have time to participate in the main event, correct? So the main event is going to be September 17th through 23rd, 2023 in Las Vegas at LA. At the Strat, and specifically LA Comedy Club for the main event, and then other events around the city there. What is our deadline for submission if people haven't participated yet? Should I look that up?
Yeah, I don't know if I have the
let's see
here.
The calendar. We're in August, so let's see.
Registration closes on August 13th.
Okay, August 13th, 2023. And so let me put up the registration link on the screen here and tell people, and then we can talk about,
so on August 1st, I'm going to announce the first 25 names that are getting into the top 101. Then on August 8th, I'll announce the another 25. And then on August 15th, I'll announce the remaining top 101. So by August 15th, so if you register on August 13th, we're going to watch your video and you still have a chance to get in. So as long as you register by the 13th, submit a video with your registration, we're going to watch the videos, score them, and you'll get put into the ranking, and if your video scores high enough, you're in the top 101. If not, as soon as registration closes, then I think it's the next day or the day after that, I send out an email to everybody who registered saying, hey, sign up for the registered comic shows if you're coming out to Vegas, and we'll have 3 of those, and you sign up for those shows, and you get to perform in Vegas, whether you are part of the 101 or not. And then you get to come to every seminar that we have for free, part of your registration. And we have 2 seminars a day starting on Monday. So we'll do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So that's 6 seminars right there. And then Thursday, we have the meet and greet, which is where we put all the industry in a room that's there. And all the comics get to go walk around and say hello, shake their hands, tell them who they are, leave them their business card, promo pack, anything they want to leave with them. We'll send out emails to all the comics on what they should bring, stuff like that. Make sure they're prepared and ready. And then, we also put up boxes of around our check-in area of a whole bunch of logos of comedy clubs all over the country, and you can go around and put your business card in the box, kind of like Valentine's Day in high school, or not high school, like elementary school, where you want to put your Valentine's Day card in. But we do that, and then we send out all those cards to the club owners after the festival. So it's like another way to get, if the club owner doesn't show up, we're still going to send them a package of stuff from all the comics that were out there. And, that's on Thursday. Then on Friday, we'll have 2 more seminars during the day. And Saturday, if we have enough industry, we'll do 2 more seminars on Saturday too. And 14 shows. If you're a comic in the festival, you get to come into any of the shows you want. It's a lot of fun. There's all kind of stuff we do, just hanging out, being around, going out every night. It's a fun week. It's busy, goes fast. Stay at the Strat. We have a really good hotel deal there with the Stratosphere. We get you a discount on your resort fee, and that's where all the industry is going to be staying. So you have a really good chance of running into one of them on the elevator or just walking around. I like the Strat because it's a casino, so it's fun. It's fairly big, but it's small enough that you can still run into people. And you'll see pockets of comics all over the place and bookers, and they all go to different bars and just hang out for the night. It's just carrying on all late night. Then we get up early in the morning and do it all again. A lot of fun.
And so $100 registration fee basically gets you a week seminar of comedy, and it's amazing. Like we were talking about this the other day, because anybody who's ever been to any kind of conference or convention or anything like that, being able to spend a week at basically it's a comedy conference. You might as well call it that too.
It's been described as a job fair for comics.
Yeah.
I didn't say that. Other comics have said it, and I was like, oh, that's actually pretty good. That's kind of
but
what
you
it
also
is.
get to learn so much too. So I think it's a
You also get a headshot, free headshots
too for $100. And I mean, you got to pay for your hotel, but the Strat's one of the biggest bargain hotels to stay at on the Strip. So it's the most
registering right now is supposed to be $100, but I've been busy and I haven't changed the price, so it's $75, and I'm going to leave it that way. But I'm going to leave it that way. I'm going to look at the calendar. I'm supposed to go up. I'm going to leave it up that way till August 7th. So if you register any time before August 7th, it's just $75.
So go now. Operators are standing by. Go now. You get free headshots. You apply now.
Micah is our photographer. She's been our photographer the last couple years. She comes out. We set up a full studio with a white backdrop, so you can crop that out and use it for other photos. She's great. She's fun. We've got lights. So it's nice. We get all the headshots of everybody.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's quite a bargain, really. So and
you get
even
shots.
What's that?
You get performance shots too that we send you.
Okay. So. Yeah, amazing. I'm looking forward to it. It sounds like something to remember for a long time. Lots of good stories.
And as soon as all the 101's out and everything like that, then we send out for the Registered Comic Show. Then I'll also send out information about volunteering, and we kind of have the jobs broke down, and you just fill out the volunteer form and say, I can help these days. And if you volunteer, and you won't miss any of the seminars, because that's usually where I need volunteers in the seminars. Or if you say, hey, I really want to see this seminar, then I make sure that you're volunteering in the room while the seminar is going on. Sometimes it's just a matter of having somebody at the door to make sure they got their name tag on when they're walking through. Because I've had comics from out of town and other places try to sneak in. And I'm like, I get it, and I'm honored that they want to do that, but every comic in that room is paid a fee to be here, and it's not fair to them. So you got to be registered to go in. So it's fun. It's a fun week.
The World Series of Comedy.com. Go there to register. And also, if you're listening in the future too, like this next year's right around the corner, and participate in whatever changes are in store for next year as well too. So, and I can't say enough good things about it. I mean, just again, I participated in the Phoenix satellite, and just the feedback. I mean, so you can submit your tape, get feedback from 5 different judges. And that alone to me was worth the submission fee, but then being able to participate, and then you guys go out after every show and give more feedback. So the comics that were performing that night, you all give more feedback, and that, like, what a rare opportunity to be able to get feedback. And it's hard for some people to actually be able to hear that, because they're like, I'm amazing. It hurts to hear I need to improve, but
like you make it worthwhile. And I'm not saying that because I'm on this podcast. We really enjoyed meeting you and getting to know you and hanging out with you. It's just been so much fun. And your energy, your excitement about all of it, that's why we do it. I mean, if everybody treated us like shit, we wouldn't continue to produce this festival. We do it because the comics that appreciate it and get something out of it. It's a lot of fun for us. So seeing somebody like you who's just enjoyed the shit out of it this year, that's fun. So yeah.
Well, I try to tell everybody, every comic I run into, all the good stuff about it too, because definitely there's some preconceived notions about it that, again, the people that just haven't participated in it or understanding what the goal of it is, right? So like a lot of people hear festival or competition and then they think that's all that it is. And they don't understand that everybody that's participating in it, their goal is to help people get better and get to the point that they are featuring.
The contest is really low on the list of why
Right.
you should do. And if anybody has any questions or whatever, if you go to the website, you scroll down to the bottom, there's my phone numbers on there and my emails on there. You can call me anytime.
I can't imagine how many hours a day you spend answering emails, Joe. It's amazing that
I answer them a lot, yeah. But I don't get as many as I think, and then I get every once in a while I get a comic who calls me and they're like, I can't believe you answered the phone. I'm like, it's right here. If it rings, especially as soon as you register, your phone number and name goes into my phone. So if it's a name I see, I'm definitely going to answer that. But even if it's a spam, I just hang up. But if I'm near my phone, I answer it. If I'm not, I'll call you back. And I answer every email.
Amazing. Amazing.
Unless it's a really dumb email. I'm just kidding. We answer them all. There's no dumb ones.
Anything else you wanted to say you were hoping I would ask about or anything else?
I don't think so. I think I talked long enough. I don't think I gave you a chance to talk at all, hardly at all.
Oh, I got to tell some good stories. So no, this is about you. It's amazing. So
I love it. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you everyone for watching, listening, and hey, hopefully we'll see you all in Las Vegas in September or the upcoming satellites in the years to come.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Joe.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.